So, you want to learn about local government? Well, you've come to the right place. Now, your city will fall into either one of two categories. One, you have a strong mayor. The mayor is both the public figure and the spokesperson of your city, and the CEO who handles day-to-day tasks within your city. Whereas, more often than not, you will have a council manager form of government. And essentially what that means is your mayor can influence policy, but the person who really handles administration and day-to-day operations and is more of the CEO would be the city manager. So you still have a mayor, you still have city council members, but you have a city manager to help you. It can get a little confusing. I'll explain. Here's the whiteboard. Kidding, you can't see anything, there's a glare from the window. So since the majority of cities are run by a city manager, we're going to go in depth with that. Alright, let's think of your city as a company. A living, breathing, growing company. Now, you have city council members. These are people that you elect, people you vote for. And then typically they're appointed to 4-year terms and they elect a mayor. And they decide amongst themselves who the mayor will be. And they also appoint a city manager. This is the person who's going to handle the day-to-day operations. To be a full-time city manager, they're in place to make sure that everything that they're voting on, all of these little laws, aka ordinances, are actually being followed through with and things are actually happening. So let's think of your city as a company. Dunder Mifflin, for example. And your city is living, breathing, and growing. Michael Scott. He would be your city mayor. A public figurehead, gets a lot of the main connections going with the business. Whereas your city manager would be someone like Dwight Schrute, who gets a lot of work done, definitely has to be, and definitely requires more of a formal personality. They have to treat this as a very serious position. And then you have your city council members, almost like a board of trustees. Just like how in a company, a board can elect a CEO and choose to bring someone in, kind of like the council members bringing in the city manager. Next, council members have someone who takes notes. So this would kind of be like Pam, and city clerks can be elected to 4-year terms also, and they can also be appointed. Next, you have your city treasurer. This is also an elected position. These are people that deal with your money, and they're also the people that decide what the city is going to invest in. And so if those are wise decisions, your city can intentionally get a better ROI. Next is your city attorneys. You need someone to help you with all your contracts and legalities and make sure that you don't get in trouble and the FBI doesn't hunt you down. Yeah, the city attorney helps with that. Really just making sure that all your NDAs are signed properly. Kidding, they do a lot more important things and they're your chief legal advisor. Some places even completely outsource and hire an entirely different law firm. Some places only elect one city attorney for their entire city. Depends on how big your city is. Obviously, you've got the police chief, the fire director. Those are pretty self-explanatory, but the police chief, this is what tends to happen, and this is important also, especially for all you young people who are supporting movements like Black Lives Matter. More often than not, generally speaking, your city can hire a recruitment source in order to appoint the next police chief. Now, if you live in larger cities, San Francisco, Los Angeles, these are cities where you have a strong mayor. The mayor will be the person with the final say on who the police chief is. Whereas if you're in the council manager section, it would be the city manager who has more jurisdiction over the final say. But things they can do are host public town hall meetings to get the public's opinion on who the next police chief will be. On to a more positive note, public works director. Public works directors are so important and vital to the community. They deal a lot with the operations of the city, wastewater, streets, garbage collection. I know that doesn't sound important, but trust me, it's very important. And that bleeds into the next one, planning director. Planning director, this is a huge position. These are the people that help kind of determine what your city is going to look like 10 to 15 years from now. More often than not, the city wants your input. Not just the input of the 65 plus demographic, which we know votes, but your opinion. The youth of color, youth of different abilities, youth of all different backgrounds, and people who tend not to vote, tend not to participate in elections, and tend to be ignored when it comes to policy changes. At city council meetings that I've gone to and town hall meetings, I've definitely been the only person my age there. But I definitely saw a lot of people from the planning department getting opinions and asking people what they want the city to look like years from now. You also have your economic development director, parks and recreations director. I really want to give like a different character of the office each of these titles, but I really feel like Dwight would just dominate. I mean, the second you say parks, he would just be there being like Beats, Bears, Battlestar Galactica. And now let's go through the different departments. City manager's department. Yes, they have their own department, so you can write letters to their departments and to your city manager telling them of things you do and don't approve of. The finance department, economic and development department, fire department, human resources department, IT department, library department, parks and recreations department, police department, and your public works department. Next thing you need to know about cities, boards and committees. Yes, the departments aren't the only people that have power and jurisdiction over things. We have boards too. For boards and committees, there are a ton of them. I mean, there are a ton of commissions. If you're under a certain age, you can also join the youth commission in your county if you have one and just become a youth liaison. So you get to help influence policy in high school before you can even vote. Not everyone has a youth commission, but you can found one. The one in my county is only 25 years old. Now, you ask me, Monique, why would I want to be on a board or committee? Well, there's a lot of cool ones, and they affect your city. And also, your city council and your mayor and city manager are going to look to a lot of these boards and committees for input from the public on things that are pertinent to your city. Here's a bit of a personal opinion, and you may think that you really don't have a voice with these sorts of things, but I like to think that these little ways are like the drops of pebbles into lakes that cause ripple effects. Because, for example, if you feel like your artwork and your sculptures in your city don't fully depict the diversity of your city, then, I mean, there's an art committee. Talk to them. Those are the people that are in charge, and maybe you feel like they could be more inclusive of different communities in your area. Well, now's your chance. Parks department. My city is considered a softball/baseball city, predominantly because of the people who used to live here 50 years ago. But since then, the demographic of who and which races live in this city has changed, and now we want a soccer field. However, a lot of the same people who are in power aren't pushing for that. And I'm not blaming anyone specifically, I'm just saying the powers that be aren't pushing for soccer fields when there's clearly a demand and there is supply, there is space for soccer fields, but more baseball fields are being prioritized. The demographic has changed, people's wants have changed, there's more people playing soccer in our city, and we want a soccer field. Now, how can you, as a caring citizen, resident, or human being living in your city, care and stay up to date with what's going on? Number one, your city's website. If you can't physically go to city council meetings, watch them on your computer. More often than not, they're recorded, and your city will have a list of all of its departments and all the things that it has. You can intern for one of these departments. You can join a youth advisory council or a youth commission and then become a youth liaison to one of these committees, meaning that you have a seat with the committee. You are a part of the committee. Or you can simply observe, shadow the committees. You can write letters. And the city wants to hear from you. They don't just want to hear from one demographic. Also, you can follow your city on social media. Some cities are more tech savvy than others. Some cities haven't updated their profiles since like 2005. So if you want to make any change in your city, first you have to find out what type of city you live in, who is actually in charge, and what they stand for, and what departments are working on what projects. It's not as hard as you think. And I believe in you, and you should believe in you. But don't get fatigued, because when supporting movements, national causes, or just your local city ordinances, it can be exhausting and overwhelming. So please take care of yourself, buy yourself flowers, use good candles, I don't know, go to Target. All right, well, that's a wrap.